You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network.
But somebody asked a particularly embarrassing question, and I actually answered it. So anyway, I think I'll kick it off, and it's hard to see because there's the sun, roughly the brightness of the sun are in our eyes. So I would say if you have a question, maybe I don't think there's mics in the audience. Are there?
There are.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, it's the sun preventing me from seeing the mics in the audience. So if you have any questions, you can just come up to those, and then at least we can hear you. All right, so we'll start. I'm going to start off maybe with something. So if we think of your history, I'll start off with something that most people probably don't know. They know you for Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake, Heretic, Hexen, and I guess 103 other games. But one of the things people I think don't know about you is that you started programming when you were 11.
Yeah. Nowadays, if you want to learn how to program, you basically have a computer at home already, and there's the internet with all the information that you could ever want on it. But back when I started learning how to program, most people didn't even have a computer at home, and this was in the 70s. So in 1979, I was totally addicted to arcade games, and I spent all my money in the arcades, and in 1979, Pac-Man wasn't even out. So I played a lot of Space Invaders and Asteroids and a bunch of other black and white games. And one day, my friend came riding to my house on his bike and said, "I found a place where we can play games and it doesn't cost anything." And I was like, "Oh my god!" So I got on my bike and followed him, and he took me to the local community college. And we went into the computer lab, and there was a room with a bunch of terminals connected to a mainframe in the next room, which was like a whole room filling computer. And I got to see games that were just text, like really basic games. They were probably programming basic as well, but they were very basic games, and I didn't have to pay money for them, and I didn't have to hurry up. I could actually take my time with each turn. And for me, that was interesting design-wise. That was like, oh wow, I don't have to frantically mash buttons and try and kill things. I can actually go through rooms and adventures and stuff. So that got me interested in playing games on computers. And then I saw that we were in a room with a bunch of students that were going to college. And I said, "Are they making things like this?" And he said, "Yeah, they're learning how to program in BASIC and learning how to make programs." So I said, "Well, I want to do that too." So I just started asking the students what they were typing, and I went around with the paper and was just writing down keywords, basic keywords, and started to use them myself, and started to figure out how to make a game on my own on a college mainframe when I was 11.
So we started at 11, and then in '93, you guys create Doom, and just last night they released the new trailer for Doom Eternal, and nobody's asked you the question yet, at least with the microphone on your face. So what do you think of the trailer that you saw for the brand new Doom?
Awesome. I don't know if anyone here has seen the new trailer, but it looks really good, and I was pretty happy to see that in the same way that the new, the 2016 version of Doom that came out was a really great refresh of the Doom brand, and it was super aggressive and fast, and all of the things that we cared about back when I was making the original Doom. It was fast. It was super responsive. It was super violent. And then when we made Doom 2, we didn't mess up the original formula. We just added a double-barrel shotgun, a bunch of monsters, and made all new levels at a better quality than we had earlier. And that's basically what I see in this new Doom Eternal video is cooler weapons that they've added. They've just augmented the character, better capability of moving through the world, swinging from stuff, climbing walls. The environment is crazy. It looks so good. So yeah, they did not mess it up at all. They just did an amazing job. So I'm really excited to play it.
Did you like 2016?
2016 was great. Yeah, I loved it.
So speaking of violence in video games, because you were kind of known for, well, there was Mortal Kombat before you, but then Doom really kicked it up several levels. I want to go back though to your first episode with violence in video games, which involves you in an arcade, and there's a story that is in the very beginning of Masters of Doom. Maybe I thought that you could share that, how your parents felt about you playing video games. Yeah,
they didn't like the fact that I played video games. And they told me not to go to the arcade and play them. But I couldn't not go to the arcade. So I used to hide my bike behind the arcade. So when my dad would drive by and he didn't see my bike, then obviously I'm not at the arcade. But I guess he figured out that I was there since I wasn't at home, and decided to just go inside. And I was playing, I think it was Asteroids I was playing. And I was in the middle of playing the game, and I kind of heard some of my friends around go, "Oh," make some kind of noise, and then my head just basically got smashed into the arcade game, and then he just dragged me out of there and threw me in the truck, and went and found my bike that was hidden, and took me home, and then beat me up some more home. So it really made me want to make games. Revenge.
Did he ever apologize for that?
No. I mean, he told me not to go to the arcade, and I did. So
has he come to terms with the fact that you make video games for a living?
Yeah.
Has he acknowledged
He's figured it out.
That it worked out okay?
It worked out all right. Yeah.
Right, does anybody on that incredibly tragic question? Does anybody have any questions before I keep going on? It's hard to see with the sun. Okay, nobody has any questions except the invisible man at the mic. All right. So let's move on to an embarrassing question.
Why are we doing that?
I'm kidding. All right, so let's talk about which game do you guys want me to ask questions about?
You can just yell it.
Daikatana.
Oh, Daikatana. I heard Quake first, so I'm going to go for Quake, then I'm going to go for Daikatana.
See, we do Daikatana answers here. We don't avoid Daikatana. Let's talk about Quake first.
All right, but yeah, I'm just going in order. So let's talk about Quake. What do you want to know about Quake?
Trent Reznor? Yeah, he did play it.
So let me say, that was the question. Okay, yeah, so
the question was, did Trent Reznor play Quake? Yes, he did.
Maybe talk a little bit about his involvement with Quake.
Yeah, the reason why Trent got involved is because Nine Inch Nails group were huge Doom nuts, and their tour bus had four 46s on it, all LAN connected, and they used to deathmatch all the time on the tour bus when they got done with a gig. And we contacted a company called ICM in Los Angeles that represents companies and people, and we were kind of looking to see, is there anything that we can do with our brands, like movies and books and stuff like that. So we got representation by somebody at ICM, and they just so happened to represent Nine Inch Nails as well. So they figured out that Nine Inch Nails liked our stuff and we liked Trent's music. So they basically got hooked up together. Maybe you guys can do something. And Trent came to the office, and we basically just got to talk to him. He's a super, super intelligent guy, really smart, really cool. And he said he would totally be into making the soundtrack for Quake. So he came to the office probably about 3 or 4 times, and we went and hung out. And it was kind of funny that anytime he's coming to the office, somehow people knew he was coming. And it wasn't like it's, all over the internet, because the internet barely even existed at that point. But there were just women all over the bottom of that building waiting for his limo to pull up. It was, I don't know how they knew. But they just wait. He's up there for hours. They're all waiting for him to come back out. and so it was like, that's a real rock lifestyle there. But he did a great job, and he was even involved in Doom 3 as well with audio. So he played Quake definitely, and it was great that he did the music for it. But unfortunately, we couldn't have the music as MP3s, and so I had to play off the actual CD. And that was a time where you install a game on a CD and then you put the CD away. And so you can't hear the music. The CD is not in the drive. It's not actually MP3s streaming from a directory. And that was all record company stuff. They're worried about people copying these MP3s if we just had them in a hard drive versus on a CD. So they wouldn't allow us to put it, to take it off the CD. So unfortunately, a lot of people didn't hear the music back then. But nowadays, there's a lot of quick source ports out there, and the music's out there, and they play the music while you're playing the game now. So it's kind of came back.
So we'll move on now to Daikatana. Since there might be kids in the audience, we'll also say that Daikatana had a famous ad campaign that went along with it, which rhymed with John Romero is going to make you his Twitch. We'll say.
What was the Daikatana question?
So they just want to hear about it. So I'll ask the question. So you have, let's just set the stage. What number was Quake in terms of how many games you've made?
95, almost 100 maybe.
Yeah, so Quake, so you made 100, so let's say you made somewhere between 90 and 100 games. At that point, who's counting? And then you leave id Software on August 6th. 1996, and you are off on a great adventure, and you are going to make this amazing shooter. Well, you're making a company, first of all.
Yeah.
And you're going to make this Ion Storm, and you're going to make this amazing shooter called Daikatana. Now, clearly, we know things didn't go that way. And it's tough, because when you know what, I take Daikatana on my resume if I can also have Doom Quake, if I can get away with that. But it's like you're going uphill, and then, ooh. So what happened?
So many things happened. But the real high level of the issues that we had developing the game was I brought in a couple co-founders that were not good to have in the company. And that really disrupted a lot of the people in the company, just having these guys in there. And the other issue was that when I was making games at id, I was working with people who had 10 years of experience making games, and they had made dozens and dozens of games just like I had. So we were basically experts when we got together and started id Software and making our games. Starting Ion Storm, I decided that I would bring in people who were modders and people who just had a ton of passion and knew how to do something associated with making a game. So people that had written like the Reaper bot for Quake, I wanted to bring him in to program on Daikatana. People that had done amazing level design work for Doom and Quake, I wanted to bring them on to do levels for Daikatana. So I brought a lot of modders to the team. Nobody was from the industry. Not one single person had actually ever made a game in their life before. They'd made some levels at home. So many of the people never even had jobs before.
So it's kind of like opening a restaurant, but you're the only cook and nobody else.
Exactly. So it's like, now I have to teach people how to make a game. So that took 3 years. And they had tons of passion for it. It was great, and it was like bringing a lot of new people into the industry through Daikatana. But it was really hard to make the game with people who had no professional experience. They didn't know what a real job was like or even best practices. And making games is really complex. And the passion was helpful for getting them through those 3 years. But they had to learn so much to get the game out. And it didn't equal what could have been done with a team that was from the industry when I started it. So it was a big experiment. It was a big experiment working with a team of people who had passion but not really any industry experience. So they got a lot of experience. And the funny thing is the game has a lot of fans still. I have a lot of people emailing me saying, "Don't listen to what people say, I love Daikatana."
There's almost like an emo fan club for Daikatana.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that like it, and there's still servers up right now that you can connect to and play multiplayer Daikatana.
But if I just summarize, sort of, I guess the bigger issues are that you worked with a really experienced group of people, and you decided you
not to work with experienced people.
Yeah, but you took it for granted, we'll say.
I did. I took it for granted, yeah.
but overall, I mean, not every game can turn out great. And I also know Daikatana in the beginning had some, even when it was launched, in sense people had corrected it, but had some AI issues where you were fighting the AI as much as you were fighting monsters.
Yep, that's because the guy who was programming it had never programmed before. So he learned how to code while he was making the game as well.
Oh. So if you're taking a lesson with Daikatana...
This was an experiment.
Check people's resumes. Yeah, that sounds... all right, anything else? Questions about Quake, Doom, Daikatana? Yes, sir. Okay. For those of you who have joined us, we have 6 suns coming down on us, so it will be hard to see if you raise your hand. Go ahead.
I just wonder, have you ever heard of a game called Noah's Ark 3D?
Of course.
And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we wanted to license the Super Nintendo engine that we had written for Wolfenstein 3D, and there was this religious company called Wisdom Tree that wanted to license it for a non-violent game. And so we're like, okay,
So they wanted to license Doom for...
They wanted to license Wolfenstein on the Super Nintendo for non-violent games. And, I mean, we wouldn't do any work on it. We would just sell them our engine. So we did. We just, went, go ahead. So they made a game called Super Noah's Ark 3D, where you basically feed food to animals and they fall asleep. So they get killed. You're poisoning. And it doesn't feel like poison because there's little Z's over. But, you're trying to put you're Noah, and you're putting all the animals to sleep so they can get on the ark. They're not afraid. Whatever excuse that game had for doing this. It was hilarious we just licensed the engine to them. It was not even anything that anyone outside of our biz guy had anything to do with, other than to say, yeah, go ahead.
I can say the conference, this is the first time you've been asked about Noah's Ark 3D.
I think so.
It's a pretty esoteric.
You can ask the most esoteric things ever.
Yeah.
If you want.
All right, any other questions? All right, yeah, I would say, I saw your hand and then yours if you guys want to just go to the mic. You can go to the mic too. I'll make up embarrassing questions if you don't. Oh, wait, that's...
Please go to the mic.
Yeah, please go to the mic. You're like, no, we want the embarrassing questions from Brenda.
I just want to ask, I don't know much about the very inner workings of Iron Storm, but I know Tom Hall was there as well, and I quite liked the Necronox, and I know that game kind of got a bit of a shaft, and I'm just curious to know more of the details around that time and around what was happening, because it's something that I think a sequel would have been really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there needs to be an Iron Storm book. There is a really great article on Salon that came out, 15 years ago probably. It's called An Elegy to Ion Storm, written by Christian Devine, who is the writer for the Life is Strange games. And he was at Ion Storm. He made the Daikatana story up, and he wrote on Daikatana. He wrote on Deus Ex. He wrote on Anachronox, I think. So he was involved with everything, and so he did a really great write-up of what it was like to be in Ion Storm. But Tom had a really cool vision to basically take Final Fantasy VII and make a Western version of that with his own crazy ideas. And that's basically what Anachronox was. And it took 4 years to make Anachronox. So when I got done with Daikatana, I worked on a prototype for just a couple of months, and then I basically spent the next year working on Anachronox with Tom and the team. And I brought my team over to help Anachronox, so the team got 50% bigger to basically get that last year out. And it was great. I mean, it was really fun at that time making the game, because those co-founders were not in the company anymore, and the company was just clear of any kind of weirdness, and everyone could just focus on developing. And it went really, really well. The problem was that because of Daikatana, our publisher kind of looked at the Dallas office as being let's not spend money on that office anymore. Meaning the games that they're making, let's not promote them. Deus Ex came out and it did amazingly well. Game of the Year did so well. Game of the Decade for some places. So they focused their marketing on Deus Ex. So unfortunately, Anachronox was an amazing game, and they got no marketing because they just didn't focus on it because of the whole Dallas situation. It was like, get the game done, let's shut it down, and we'll just focus on the Deus Ex franchise going forward. So that's what they did, but unfortunately they left out this amazing game called Anachronox. It was totally Final Fantasy VII for the Western audience.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing actually with thinking of Iron Storm, that you think of a combat where you've got the tank going in, sort of Daikatana was the tank, and it fell like a tank might. But ultimately...
Actually, another game fell before Daikatana did.
Oh, that's right.
There was an RTS that we made called Dominion, and it was actually a game that was being developed at a different company that those two co-founders, they brought with them. And so they wanted to finish developing it, and they did. And unfortunately, that game came out when StarCraft came out. Like the same day, and got just destroyed that game. And the funny thing is, if you actually do any kind of Googling about it, the developers of StarCraft came to an E3 and saw Dominion and went, oh my god, we need to change our game. Because the art was so good for Dominion. And the guys making StarCraft were like, we can't do what we're doing. This game is like going to come out and just blow us away. So they went insane on StarCraft for the next year. And then when StarCraft came out, it decimated Dominion.
There was a game that I worked on that was similar to that, called Jag Alliance, that probably nobody's heard of, but it released within, I think, the same week as XCOM. And they had aliens. It was the same kind of game, but with aliens. Yeah. So game development.
Things like that happen. There's only 365 days in a year.
Yeah.
And there's like 1,000 games released on Steam per week now.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's crazy.
All right. We have PBS. Go ahead.
Hello. As a music composer, I'm dying, really hungry to know how was the process of your collaboration with Trent Reznor.
Well, we didn't tell Trent how to make any music. Like, that was up to him. He got to see what the game was like. So when he'd come to the office, we would show him the latest build, and he would run him through the 4 different episodes, and he could see what the themes looked like and how fast it was, and just kind of get a general idea that while we're making the game, we wanted to have some music playing in it so we could also kind of be inspired by something that was maybe close to what he was going to make. So Trent had a friend who had made really cool ambient music, and he sent us a bunch of MP3s, and we just kind of hooked them up to levels. So basically, while we're developing Quake's levels, we're listening to somebody else's music while we're playing the levels, waiting to be able to switch them out for Trent stuff. And Chris Brenna actually did most of the music under Trent's direction, and Trent did all the screams, and he did the title song, audio, and all that kind of stuff. But it was really Chris who did a lot of the actual hands-on creation of the music, and he knew that we really liked the stuff that they had sent us to test with. So when we could switch out his stuff, it wasn't like completely different, but the nice thing was that the other person's music was MP3 and Trent's was all on CD. But the creation process was really pretty hands-off. They just did everything when they were in New Orleans. He had his place in New Orleans. Basically, his house was like right next to Anne Rice's house, and so he did all of it from there, and just sent stuff to us. The release of the game actually was held up because we were waiting for the 12 signatures from Interscope to release all of those songs. So yeah, involving people who are really famous really slows things down sometimes.
Just this is random, non-embarrassing trivia about you. There was a point in your career when you had to choose between games and metal music. Because John is... you can actually... There's so many weird stories there. But John, I had a choice between singing metal and programming won. Although you had the hair for metal.
Or art.
Yeah. Okay, over to the side.
Speaking of hair, what's the secret of your hair? Just like, there's going to be some magical properties of just it being so awesome.
I know, because I'm over 50. almost 51. And usually people don't have hair that long. So,
Or they don't have 5 times the hair they actually.
no. people, yeah. So I get this question every once in a while, and it's funny because it's like cheating because it's just genetics, really. On both sides of my family, one side is Yaqui, Pascal Yaqui, in Native Americans and Aztec, and the other side has Cherokee. So long hair is inevitable. It's going to happen. And none of my family's hair went away, so they didn't lose any hair. And then people would ask me what kind of shampoo and stuff. Just normal stuff. Nothing special there, except that I use this hair oil stuff at the very end to stop all frizzy kind of stuff. So I glue it on my hair, put some hair oil on it, and that's it.
You've donated it to Loxolove a couple times.
Yeah, I cut it all off a couple times. Donated it.
All right.
Yeah, anything else you need to know about hair?
Genetics, it's pretty, yeah.
Here, have some DNA.
Hi, yeah, so I just want to say Quake 2 was probably, the soundtrack of that game was probably what got me into metal music at the time. Absolutely love that soundtrack.
Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah, my question was actually regarding the constraints of building games in the 90s as well, because obviously a big thing of like Doom and so on was the 2D enemy sprites in a 3D space. So I was wondering what it was like working with the technological constraints at the time.
Yeah, every time we made a game, it was like starting from scratch at that time. So even going from Commander Keen to Wolfenstein was so different. Even though we could luckily use my tool that I wrote to create levels, we were creating them in a more abstract way with Wolfenstein. We're still using sprites, so 2D is there forever, And then when we start moving into Quake technology, where we're doing everything in 3D, and there's no sprites except for UI, user interface stuff on the screen, status bar, and all that, we had to figure out how do we make 3D models? What do we use? We have Deluxe Paint 2. That was the only program we had. So at that time, I don't think there was any really good 3D program on the PC. At that time it was 386s and Pentiums were just starting, Pentium 90, 60s and 90s. So we bought an SGI Gecko, or the Indigo. This SGI Indigo, they were teal-colored 90s, teal-colored 80s, teal-colored computers that ran a program that was called Alias. And so Alias was the program that we used to create our 3D models. And even the skinning process of putting a texture on all the sides of the model, which is called skinning, where you have to take polygons and flatten them out on a 2D surface for artists to just draw on, because you couldn't draw on a model like you can nowadays with ZBrush and Substance and all that. This is ancient history. So you had to basically take a texture, all the textures on the character get pulled out. Unfortunately, at that time, skinning was so limited that a lot of the side textures, if you didn't have a point at the ends of the side of a character, it would just streak pixels down the sides of the character. So we did have streaks in some of those characters if you look really closely, but we tried to eliminate most of them. But we created super low polygon count models in Alias. Just to give you an idea of how limited we were on polygons and rendering and stuff, when we were drawing the scenes in Quake, the screen was only 320 by 200 pixels, 320 pixels across, 200 high. It was full 3D, so when we were drawing the graphics, there was no such thing as a 3D card back then. We couldn't just send things to a card. Nowadays, you just send polygons to a video card that just renders it on the screen, perspective, correct texture mapping, and all kinds of shaders and stuff. Back then, it was we had control of the screen memory where every dot was being placed, and so to draw the polygons, we had to figure out all the calculations for how we would take a 2D texture and change it to be this weird angled polygon on the screen and draw every pixel correctly so it looked like it should from that angle. It took a year of really hard work just to make that part happen. And as a comparison, before Quake, when we made Doom, it took 2 months to make it. Make Doom's engine, basically render a world. And with Quake, it took like a year to get that solid. So it was really difficult making it, having to put every pixel on the screen individually. So because of that, we need a high frame rate and all that. We had to limit the amount of polygons we could have on the screen. We limited ourselves to 350 polygons for the world polygons, and then we just kind of limited ourselves on the polygon limits on the actual characters themselves. But the world only had 350 polygons. Like, you don't even have less than that in someone's hand nowadays, or even a finger. So it's crazy, but yeah, it was like starting over every time we made a game. It was just like lots of technical problems to solve, but it was we knew we could solve them. It was just like, how fast can we do it, because other people in the world are trying to do the same thing. We want to be first.
Okay, quick question. You only get to give the answer because it's a horrible question to ask you. You're going to an island. You only get to bring one metal album with you.
Oh my God.
No, you can't say, oh my God. Which album's gone? All right. In the meantime, while you're thinking of that horrible answer, go ahead.
Hey. What is your favorite mod that you've ever seen of a game that you've worked on, and why is it Brutal Doom?
You answered it. And why is it Brutal Doom? If we had come out with Doom looking the way Brutal Doom looks, the whole violence in video games thing would have been way worse.
Can I actually, so just because it's an interesting thing that people might not know, so in addition, this isn't about me actually, but I'm also a game historian. So on December 9th, 1993, in the floor of Congress in the US, was this huge debate about video game violence. And Sega was there, Nintendo was there, like all the big players were there, and people had had enough of this horrible video game violence because of Mortal Kombat. Hold on, you show up tomorrow. Mortal Kombat was out there, and it was, you could rip a guy's heart out, which was, I don't know, 10 pixels or so, and then Night Trap. So this is December 9th. Meanwhile, do you have any idea what's happening?
No, we don't care.
And then what happens the next day?
Yeah, we released Doom the next day.
Just to make you understand the
Let's
context.
define violence in video games right now.
So you understand, so Brutal Doom, if Brutal Doom had been released, oh my goodness.
Unbelievable. They would have done it again. They would have had to run that whole thing in Congress again if Doom had come out the way Brutal Doom works today. It's amazing.
So who's coming to the island with you?
There's no way to know. I mean,
you got.
Well, I said with the Judas Priest, obviously, it's either one of those.
Okay, but you got to pick one out.
It's really hard.
All right, I'm going to give another question. You got to come up with an answer. Go ahead.
Wolfenstein in Germany.
What was that?
Wolfenstein in
He
Germany.
wants to know about Wolfenstein and the censorship of it, because Germany only just lifted their rule about the depiction of Nazis in media like 2 days ago.
Yep. So there's this list in Germany. They have this banned images, a bunch of banned images in Germany that you can't have iron crosses and swastikas and all these, even I think the SS symbol. There's a ton of these symbols that you will be thrown immediately in jail if you walk around with these things in Germany. At that time, violent video games were kind of new, but they knew that like Germany was forbidden by the Allies to be violent after World War II, and so this is like decades old
That
stuff.
includes any display of Nazi.
Yep, any display of the Reich's symbols and any kind of aggression or violence.
And so Wolfenstein actually comes from Castle Wolfenstein by Silas Warner.
Yeah. Castle Wolfenstein is a game that came out in 1981 on the Apple II computer. It's a top-down stealth game. You're basically trying to disguise yourself like a Nazi and try and escape with the plans to the fortress and get out. You're an American soldier. And it's all 2D and stuff. And so what we did in 1992 was decide, why don't we make a 3D version of Wolfenstein 3D? Because we're trying to come up with an idea for a game using this new texture mapping technique that we had just used in a game called Catacomb 3D like 2 months earlier. And so we're like, what could we do that's a really great idea? Like, what's an awesome idea? And so a couple of bad ideas were thrown around, and then I said, why don't we just remake Wolfenstein? And immediately everyone was like, oh my god, we have to do that. Like, we were total Wolfenstein fanatics. So, and that was 10 years before. So that's what we did. We made the game, and then it got listed like pretty soon after
it got. You mean banned, right?
It got banned in Germany pretty quickly, but everybody in Germany, like everybody wanted to play it really badly. So in Germany, people sold Wolfenstein under the counter in a game store.
So, and just as without mentioning any names, just John and I are also. Since we're here in Ireland, we're eventually opening a museum up in Galway specifically about game design. And we are part of a couple groups that are game historians as well and collect big boxes. And we recently went to Germany where we had to meet someone in a private, we didn't have to, we agreed to, meet them in a private room so they could get their Wolfenstein boxes signed. Because it
still couldn't show it.
Still couldn't show it, because if kids saw it or other people saw it, it would have been considered illegal and the games would have been confiscated. So this was just, what, the summer?
It was still an issue.
Yeah.
But and it's just like this whole, keep them from being aggressive. But yeah, it's interesting to I guess have a game banned, but they were selling it anyway under the counter, and now it's like all over the internet, so you can easily get Wolfenstein at any point.
So you have 8 minutes left. Have you got an answer? One of them.
I would say Sad Wings of Destiny.
That's a good choice. Okay, that's Judas Priest is going to the island. Okay, which side was I before? Okay, so you're up.
Do you have any recommendations for like resources for game design, like books or websites? And also, when is that museum opening?
The hope is for Galway 2020. So we've got, we certainly have all the materials. Just a random piece of trivia, John, with the exception of a few discs and a notebook, has never gotten rid of anything in his entire history. So we actually...
So from being a teenager, like all my drawings, all the video games I made on Apple II and assembly language and stuff, I have all the games, I have all the source code for most of them, lots of drawings.
Doom discs.
Yeah, the first replicated Doom discs, all the notes to create the Doom Bible. People have heard about the Doom Bible, which was the design doc that we used to start making the game. But I have all the notes to use to create the Doom Bible. We have unbelievable amounts of stuff for first-person
shooters. So the hope is 2020. Sometime in 2020. I mean, we're also game developers, so my crazy museum idea, but...
Yeah, we're making games at the same time.
Yeah, but anyway, so within a year we'll figure something. Well, we have more than a year, but yeah, we're getting there. We've got to at least sort it. And as far as resources go, what I would say is email me. If any of you are interested in that, just send me an email to brenda@romero.com. Especially if it has to do with game design, and I can send you a bunch of information on that. All right, we'll go to the side.
Hi. As someone who's been making games since the very early days of the industry, and is still making games now, it's $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar industry. What would you say is the biggest positive and negative of how the industry has changed and grown over that time?
Well, the biggest positive is that so many more people are playing games, and they're making games. So it's like a massive game world now compared to the way it was back in the 70s and 80s. So that's really great. When we came out with Doom, I couldn't wait to license that engine to see more games that I did make. I wanted to play other shooters, and I think everybody that makes games loves playing them, and the more the better. So the fact that the industry has totally exploded has been awesome. It's unbelievable to see the stuff that's coming out nowadays. And the things that have changed is like everything that you can possibly name in game development or even the final games themselves. Everything has changed unbelievably. I don't know if any of you have seen Red Dead Resurrection or Red Dead Redemption 2. You should call it something like that. And I've seen the gameplay videos for that. It's almost like every game made in one game. I thought Zelda was amazing, the Breath of the Wild, but oh my god, this Red Dead Redemption 2, insane. I don't even know how long it would take to make something like that if you didn't have a giant team like Rockstar.
Yeah, part of this question, I think, was, and my guess is you'll agree with this. Is like, what's the worst thing? And I feel like the worst thing for me is because there's so many great games being released, I have this awareness, if I quit my job this minute and do nothing but play games until somehow I drop dead, which I guess if I did nothing but play games, that would happen. But there's just no way to play every single game.
There's 1,000 released a week.
Yeah,
You can't do that.
but to play, like, even with the really great
just the great ones, yeah, and just the fact that like the whole game industry was started by indie game developers. Publishers were just a couple people who took submissions from people who were indies making games and distributed them. So the industry was started by indies, but it's so great to see how big the indie community is nowadays, and the kinds of risks that they take with their game designs, and the fact that I think that the indies have pioneered the narrative exploration genre that's emerging right now with, What Remains of Edith Finch and Thomas Was Alone and, Firewatch and Her Story, just all these games are amazing. But it's so cool to see how diverse the topics are for games now. It used to be shooting aliens, and now it's about everything.
So you've got 3 minutes. All right, so we're going to this side and then back to that side. So you're now enlightening on questions.
So with the new Super Smash Bros. Game that's coming out soon, would you ever add like any characters from Doom in the future in the game now, or?
I wish Doom guy was in there. The Doom Slayer now is what we call him. But yeah, he'd be awesome.
But would you ever like add him to the actual Super Smash Bros. Roster, like if you contacted the Nintendo?
Well, I don't work at Bethesda or id anymore, so they would probably do it. Probably Bethesda would be the one in charge of that. But yeah, that would be really cool.
Especially if he was in document.
Yeah.
Hello, how's it going? So basically, I found out what video games were by being shown Doom 2 on a monitor on a Windows 95 when I was a toddler. I hadn't seen anything on screen before. Thank you, John. But basically, so I feel like there's a little bit of ownership. There's an Irish experience of video games. We were exposed to them, in a way that should be unique, maybe, or maybe because it's a different market in Europe or whatever. But is there anything you've observed from living in Ireland about how we interact with games here? Do you feel that there's an Irish experience that's got a flavour to it?
I don't think I've really. We've seen game developers in Ireland developing games that are Irish, that only they could develop, that they really understand. And it's cool to see that, to see that people are kind of making cultural games, like what was it, Never Alone, or
He was Never Alone, yeah.
Yeah, Never Alone. So we're seeing some more of this cultural stuff. So that in Ireland, that's probably the only thing that's
there's
true.
another one. Can I jump in on your question? This is the embarrassing part, sort of. So with John, we had a death match, death jam in Galway just a few weeks back, where it was the best Irish death match
Quake players,
and they were brutal. It's online. This guy Krupa is in it, and it was just like watching. I don't know. It was crazy. So he was playing the whole time. But one thing, I suck, right? So I was talking to a lot of people, and the Irish first-person shooter scene, as well as other games, especially because there just wasn't that broadband availability, right? Or people were finding out of it because you weren't going to say roll into, I don't know, like Letterkenny and find an EB Games with all the games you ever wanted. A lot of stuff was past people, especially shareware was incredibly important, and then people were playing on modems with horrible connections, right? And so players, like all these sort of weird strategies developed to overcome the technical limitations, and also people tended to get together much more often. And then they would say, like, Krupa would go over to London or something and compete, and they would discover Swedish players were doing this one thing. So one of them would bring that back to Ireland, and then but the players, there became this very unique play style in shooters that was happening in Ireland, influenced largely by. Well, first of all, the Irish players that were internationally competitive, and then Swedish players. And so when they first met the guys from America, the first teams that they met from America, funny enough, had not seen some of these new techniques and just destroyed. just absolutely got destroyed. But because of the lack of broadband availability, there were people playing in person, and they got to know each other really well. And like I had such a great experience seeing these guys who, in some cases, didn't even know each other's names. Like, and there was
never saw who.
Just because I think there are kids in the audience, I'm just going to make something up. So let's just say a guy came up and he was like, "Hi, I'm Eamon." Right? And the other guy shakes his hand. He's like, "Oh," and they're trying to see. He goes like, "Dump truck." And the guy goes like, "Oh, dump truck! I haven't seen you for 50 years or whatever." But anyway, that ended up just being a really great experience. So yeah, there are unique things. And with that, John is now officially 1 minute over. Judas Priest, Saturn's Destiny is going to the island. You're still a metal fan.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, thank you very much.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.